the flashes, like the camera flashes, were quite evident despite the hood. So I knew they were taking trophy pictures. When I arrived then at what I didn't know at the time was Kandahar Air Base, I was dragged onto the floor again by two soldiers. And perhaps if I could demonstrate with just two of my friends the manner in which this movement took place.
Please do, yes.
This was the method in which we were moved from place to place. At any time we were moved as prisoners, as I was moved, whether it was interrogation or whether it was the initial processing, which is where this began. In this manner, the way that I've described, I was thrown onto the floor, stripped naked, by way of a knife that was taken to my clothing. I could feel the cold blade, the steel of that blade, gliding against my skin as the clothes came off. I was punched and kicked and spat at. I was forcibly shaved. My head was shaved, my beard was shaved. The soldiers laughed at this. They photographed again. They kicked my feet. They kicked my legs. They took me in this manner into an interrogation tent. And there I was interrogated by what I believe were FBI agents who were wearing caps with FBI written on it. And they asked me questions like, when was the last time I saw Osama bin Laden, and when was the last time I saw Mullah Omar? To which I replied, I had never seen either of these people.
Mr. Beg, you're still at Kandahar Airport Prison.
At present, this is still at the Kandahar Airport Prison.
Can you tell us, your interrogators, were they American?
Yeah, this was an entire American facility. It was a US air base. It is, I believe, still a US air base. The interrogators were from military intelligence, US military intelligence. They were all uniformed in US military fatigues. The interrogators at this point consisted of US military interrogators as well as FBI agents and other unidentified alphabet agencies. There was also racial, religious, ethnic abuse that they used. They called me all sorts of derogatory names that I would not like to repeat here, but it suffices to say that they were clear in their minds that this was very anti-Muslim in what they were saying.
And the racial abuse, again, by the Americans?
Yeah, there were no other nationalities.
There
were no other nationalities that were holding us at this point. It was entirely an American operation. I was eventually reclothed after being shackled very tightly, so to the point that the shackles were cutting into my ankles and into my hands, my wrists, and that they were bleeding, and that in the manner that I demonstrated just now, I was also shackled so that my legs could not move freely without the shackles cutting into them, and it was excruciatingly painful. I was thrown then into a hangar, which I believe was converted into makeshift prison cells that were divided with concertina or razor wire to make a cell that measured about 8 foot by 8 foot, and there I remained for several weeks. As I've demonstrated just now again, that we were taken to interrogation. I was taken to interrogation many times, sometimes in the middle of the night, sometimes for the entire day, sometimes the interrogation would last for 5 minutes, sometimes for 24 hours, and every time it would be with that method that I've demonstrated, but also two guards, two American soldiers outside of the cell, one with an M16 pointing towards me with a round chambered. I could hear the round being chambered, and one with an American soldier with a handgun pointing it towards me, just in case I tried to escape.
Were you given food and water?
I was given food and water. It was very rudimentary, it was very basic. It was in the form of small pre-sealed packs. There were no fresh meals, there was no fruit or vegetables, there was no milk or tea or any of the normal things that a person would be used to, simply water in little bottles and a pre-sealed pack.
And you were kept in a cell, you said, for several weeks. Can you give us a rough idea how long that might be?
I believe, as far as the time was concerned, that it was about 6 weeks. And after the end of the 6-week period, which included several interrogations, sometimes these interrogations would include, and again I can demonstrate the method in which this happened.
Please do.
Some of the interrogation would take place with me in that position, with, again, soldiers pointing guns. These interrogations would include not only the American intelligence, but also British intelligence, who would severely interrogate. And some of them, as I said, they would ask me one question to confirm my name and then to go through the whole process, as I described, and take me back to my cell. Other times they would bring me into this interrogation room and keep me there for 24 hours in that manner or in a similar manner, and ask me repetitive, nonsensical questions for a very great length of time.
At any time, Mr. Begg, did they actually explain to you why you're being detained in this manner?
They used the word that you have now been neutralized, and that meant, as far as they were concerned, it's a preemptive action. They clearly told me that we know that you've not done anything, but you fit a profile, and as far as that profile is concerned, we have the right to keep you. The worst thing for me was the knowledge that I knew that I could get no support from the one place I thought I could get it because of my own government's involvement in what was taking place. I was after this moved to the Bagram detention facility, which is an airbase, a US military airbase that was built initially by the Soviets but has now been occupied and run by the US and coalition forces. The Bagram detention facility is the largest one in Afghanistan, and at the time when I was there, we were not allowed to walk, we were not allowed to talk, we were not allowed any movement at all. Any breach or any infraction of these rules meant that we would be taken to the front of the cell area, our hands would be tied above our heads like so, and we would be left suspended to the top of the door of the cage with a hood placed over our heads. This meant that even reciting the Quran, even looking like you're moving your lips, would be interpreted as attempting to talk to another prisoner, and just for that we would be taken to the front of the cell and held in this way. Also during this period, and I remained in the Bagram detention facility for about 11 months in total before I was sent to Guantanamo, I was hogtied. And hogtied, again, I'll have to demonstrate it to you.
Yes, please do.
It meant that you were completely immobile, you couldn't move at all. And I would be kept in this manner for hours, sometimes days on end, after which they would come along and interrogate me and try to see if whatever I was telling them was the truth or not. And as far as they were concerned, I wasn't, and they said that I would be sent to Egypt, where I knew, as somebody who'd worked in the legal field and the human rights work before, that torture is part of the unwritten convention of the place and that it's extremely severe there. And they said that if I don't cooperate, I will be sent to Egypt. And a man called Ibn al-Sheikh al-Libi was sent into this place to Egypt, where they said he spoke and gave his story within 2 days. And that I later subsequently learned that Ibn al-Sheikh al-Libi's confession was extracted in Egypt, and that his confession was that he was working with Saddam Hussein on obtaining weapons of mass destruction, and that I learned subsequently also that Colin Powell cited this as a reason, as credible intelligence, to go to war in Iraq.